Hello students, today we will continue with our history chapter bricks, beats and bones. Please note down the important information by pausing the video. Okay? Discovering the Harappan Civilization, Cunningham and his confusions. Now who was Cunningham? Cunningham was the first Director General of Archaeological Survey of India ASI. He was known as the father of Indian archaeology and he began archaeological excavation in the mid 19th century. But his main interest was in the archaeology of early history from 6th century BCE to 4th century CE and later periods. He used the accounts left by Chinese pilgrims who had visited the subcontinent between the 4th and 7th century CE. CE means Common Era. He also collected, documented and translated inscriptions found during his surveys. Sites like Harappa did not fit well in his area of investigation. In other words, the civilization which developed in Indus Valley region, Cunningham was not interested in that. He focused more upon Gangetic Valley, where river Ganga and its tributaries flow. So, what historical development took place in Gangetic Plain? He was interested in that. Okay. Although Harappan artifacts were found during the 19th century and some of these reached Cunningham also, but he did not realize how old these were as they were not part of the itinerary of Chinese pilgrims and was not known as an early historic city. Remember, he was more interested into the writings of Chinese pilgrims who came to India. None of the Chinese pilgrims came at the time of Indus Valley Civilization or Harappan Civilization. But those civilizations or those regions which were developed in Gangetic Plain, most of the Chinese pilgrims came during that time. An Englishman gave a Harappan seal to Cunningham. You know, some Englishman, he came and he just offered some Harappan seal to Cunningham, but he didn't understand. But he was unable to place it in the time frame with which he was familiar. He thought that Indian history began with the first cities in the Ganga Valley. So, it is assumed that he missed the significance of Harappa. So if question comes about the contribution of Cunningham in Harappan civilization discovery, you can simply say, well, he was not interested. He focused more on Ganga Valley and the cities which developed in river Ganga Valley. Okay. Now, different methods adopted by Marshall and Wheeler in restructuring or reconstructing Harappan civilization. Marshall and Wheeler. Dayaram Sahani and R.D. Banerjee found similar seals at Harappa and Mohenjo-daro respectively. Now, who were Dayaram Sahani and R.D. Banerjee? They were part of the Archaeological Survey of India. They were well placed in this organization and they were experts. Based on these findings in 1924, John Marshall, Director General of ASI, announced the discovery of a new civilization in the Indus Valley to the world. So in 1924, it was announced to the world that a new civilization has been discovered in Indus Valley region. Marshall tended to excavate along regular horizontal units measured uniformly throughout the mound, ignoring stratigraphy of the site. Now here is a mistake done by Marshall. He started digging deep. Whatever objects came, he just collected them and piled them together. This was the mistake which he did. You can see the picture of these two gentlemen. This meant that all the artifacts recovered from the same unit were grouped together, even if they were found at different stratigraphic layers. As a result, valuable information about the context of these finds were irretrievably lost. Archaeologists today, whenever they dug down, whenever they dig something, they mark the strategic levels. On the top layer, the objects might be different from the bottom layer, from the middle layer, from the last layer. So they have to arrange layer wise. But what Marshall did was he mixed up everything. So this is how that stratigraphic layers and the objects which were found there, it's very difficult to identify now because all those objects have been mixed up. Mr. Wheeler rectified this problem. He recognized that it was necessary to follow the stratigraphy of the mound rather than dig mechanically along uniform horizontal lines. So Mr. Wheeler came in the scene and he stopped all digging in the manner in which it was done earlier, and now he followed stratigraphy concept. Harappan scripts, they are not helpful in understanding the Harappan civilization. Why? Because they have not been deciphered. We do not know. Material remains help the archaeologists to reconstruct Harappan life. We have only material remains, the objects, and through those objects we are able to understand some Harappan life. Organic materials such as cloth, leather, wood and reeds generally decompose while stone, burnt clay, metal survive. Materials such as pottery, tools, ornaments and household objects are available. Recovering artifacts is just the beginning of archaeological enterprise. Archaeologists then classify their finds. This classification is done on stratigraphic level. The second and most complicated is in the terms of function. Archaeologists have to decide whether, for instance, an artifact is a tool or an ornament, or both, or something meant for ritual use. It's very difficult, it's very complicated. An understanding of the function of an artifact is often shaped by its resemblance with present day things like beads, cairns, stone blades, pots. Okay. Archaeologists also try to identify the function of an artifact by investigating the context in which it was found, whether it was found in a house, in drain, grave, or in kiln, chula. The problems of archaeological interpretation are perhaps most evident in attempts to reconstruct religious practices. Attempts have also been made to reconstruct religious beliefs and practices by examining seals, some of which seem to depict ritual scenes, others with plant motifs are thought to indicate nature worship. So, what were the religious practices of Harappan people? Again, archaeologists study the artifacts, the objects which are found there, and based upon their assumption, they come to the conclusion about the religious belief of Harappan people. Many reconstructions of Harappan religion are made on the assumption that later traditions provide parallels with earlier ones. This is because archaeologists often move from the known to the unknown, that is, from the present to the past. Okay, so religious beliefs of Harappa, archaeologists study the present religious system of that region and then they go back. They go in reverse and try to understand particular object. The discovery of pots, cairns, beads in the Harappan sites and their graves provide enormous information. Traces of cotton and dresses depicted on seals and sculptures give us an idea about the dressing style of the Harappan people. Terracotta figurines of women indicate the worship of Mother Goddess. Plant motifs seem to suggest the practice of nature worship. Conical stones indicate linga worship. In some seals, a figure shown seated cross-legged in a yogic posture, sometimes surrounded by animals, has been regarded as a depiction of Proto-Shiva, that is an early form of one of the major deities of Hinduism. Some animals, such as unicorn depicted on seals, seem to be mythical, composite creatures. The two important structures that have been found by archaeologists are the fire altars found at Kalibanga and Lothal and the Great Bath of Mohenjo-daro, something meant for ritual use. So if question comes about the religious beliefs, then you have to mention these points which you see in the slides. Okay, so note down this important information in your copies.